Welcome to Let's Get Writing Season 4. I'm Catherine Taylor, and we are coming to you from Grand Falls, Windsor, Newfoundland, Canada. And please let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see how far these shows go. This is our second show of the new fall and fourth season. And I'm here to focus on writers and publishers we all love. Let's Get Writing is available each week live on my Facebook page, Catherine Taylor Media, and all shows are permanently hosted on my YouTube channel at Catherine Taylor TV, and also available as podcasts on Podbean or your favorite platform. And be sure to subscribe and never miss another show. You absolutely don't want to miss a show. These guests are so great, and no exception today. My guest today is someone I've interviewed in the past regarding a project she was developing with Nicole Smith for the Gordon Pinsent Center for the Arts. She is an award-winning playwright, writer, and performer of unique distinction. She has served as writer-in-residence at Memorial University. Her plays are regularly produced nationally and internationally. She's just published a new book with Breakwater Books, and here it is, Love Life. Please meet Bernardine and Therese Stapleton as I welcome her to Let's Get Writing, and bring her right up here. And ready to go, and it's so great to have you here. I got your name out, and you're affectionately known as Bernie, and that's what we're going to call you here.
Thank you. That's
Bernie,
fine.
yeah, it's been a busy summer for you. You were here in Grand Falls, Windsor, and you were a fixture at the Gordon Pinsent Center for the Arts, a little something called the Kitchen Party Theater Festival, huh? Why don't you take it away?
Sure. Well, as you know, Nicole Smith and I spent the last several years developing this little festival. And the year that we were supposed to launch and go live, of course, didn't happen. It was 2020. So this summer we were there, and we were you're right, we were fixtures in the center at the Gordon Pinsent Center for the Arts, which is my favorite arts and culture center in the province. And it's very unique. It's got all that beautiful light. It's got a gorgeous little stage in there and a wonderful staff and manager. And we started really small, as you know, Catherine. And, our intention is to work with the center and with the town of Grand Falls, Windsor, and our sponsors as we move forward, and just kind of slowly grow it to be something that establishes a professional theater presence in central Newfoundland.
And what a great idea. We're so happy that you and Nicole have undertaken this. And I think the theater community has responded so well. You started last summer. We did an interview last year about the process of writing The Mill Girls, which is now called Girls from Away, and it was on the stage, and it was amazing to see.
It is amazing that, and you as a writer yourself, like how long it takes to come from idea to process to creation, and then seeing the fruition of the first stage literally go to the stage this summer was really amazing. And Nicole and I want to continue to work with the composers on the show Girls from Away and keep developing it, so that as the world opens up again, knock on wood, and our traveling audience increases, that people can really rely on coming to the center and seeing something that's really amazing each and every summer. And Grand Falls, Windsor is amazing because there's already so many great actors and performers and theater groups, community theater groups on the ground there, that it just sort of it's such a welcoming artistic community already, and there's so much talent to work with already. It sort of makes it so effortless to glide in and find a little niche in there. We were so blessed this summer, as you know, and it was busy, as you know, because you and I hardly even had a moment together to reconnect at all. So
We hardly did. But, the theater community here has such a rich history. And there was a period, I think, where it struggled and where it didn't really feel it had a home. So, what you've done is, and along with a lot of things, the center has really been revitalized, and we're seeing more and more activity there. And to see this play evolve, and even your lunchtime show, which was the Rowdies, which was
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, I shared
thanks.
a little video from that, and
You did. I loved it so much.
a lot of great local talent, as you say. I want to go back to the point that you made, because we do talk a lot about writing, and it's what I really noticed with this project from when I first sat down with you and Nicole, and how something evolves with writing, because we see the end product. If we go to a performance, maybe that's something that's been quite finalized, and you sit there and you go, wow, that's great. But we don't see any of that background of what all goes on together, how the songs are written, how the story is told. Just talk a little bit about that, and from your perspective.
I would love to do that because it's so rare to be asked that. The process of creation for the stage is really different and really unique because you are combining so many different elements. So the script that we produced this summer was quite possibly in its fifth or sixth form by that point. We had created characters, we had cut characters. We had thought it was going to be one kind of musical, and then we changed our minds about that and decided it was going to be another kind of musical. It was at one point it was well over 2 hours in length, and now it's a 90-minute piece. Even up until the first reading we had on the stage at the Gordon Pinsent Center for the Arts, we then went back and did another major rewrite in the rehearsal process, and it's a really good example of how it can take years to develop a really good stage play. And we feel that audience feedback is a really important part of that. And that's why we wanted to bring it to the stage this season as a work in progress, so that people could see where it was sitting and we could hear how the jokes were landing or how the songs were working. And then from that feedback, we are now able to go back to our composers and back to ourselves as writers and go, now we really see a clear path to how to elevate this even more, to strengthen the voices and make the characters a little deeper and a little richer. And so it's never really done. I mean, I also know people who work on other shows that are major successes in Canada and in America. And even when you hit a certain point of success, you're never really done with it. It's always in process. And also, we were creating a play in one of the most interesting and challenging times in our living lifetimes. And so everything took on way more meaning than
Mhm.
we ever imagined, like the importance of place, how special Newfoundland and Labrador is, how special central Newfoundland is. Those were elements that, particularly the central Newfoundland motif, of course, it was so important all along, but it became way more important now because it's sort of like a message to the world that it's a safe place, it's a welcoming place, it's a place of family and creativity and art.
Mhm.
So we had that challenge and luxury that I hope we continue to rise to, because if people are going to make a choice to spend their hard-won money and come inside and, depending on where the regulations are, have to wear a mask or
Mhm.
whatever, then we just want to make sure that people feel this is like, yeah, I feel good, I did this, and I'm taking something away, um, as a message of hope and empowerment, and also celebrating those women from long ago, from Grand Falls, Windsor, those girls from away. I think one of the things that sort of Nicole and I realized too, watching the play this year, is that the really unique thing about being a Newfoundlander is if you're not in Newfoundland, you never really feel you're at home anywhere.
You're the second person who said that to me today.
See, so it's true.
It's true. Yeah, it
It's
is
got to
true.
be a true thing. And that, so really, we're all away in some way, shape, or form if we're not at home or we're thinking about home, or
True
we
enough.
imagine one day we're going to get back home.
Yeah.
And so we want the play to feel like that. We want the festival, the kitchen party festival, to feel like that you're getting a little bit of home, no matter where you're from.
And you're doing it. I think what we were feeling, and one thing I really noted, and I want to talk about your book and the process, but
Thanks.
the difference between writing a book and writing a play. Once a book is written and it's published and the papers are there, it's very set. I mean, yeah, you can go do a revision, but there's a lot involved in it, a lot of cost, and not to say that doesn't happen with a play once it's set, but in the process of creating it, it's different. It's more malleable. You can actually, now you can go next year and change things and do things. Whereas with a book, your publisher would be like, no, the book's published, it's done. But with this, you can add this, try this, change this, elevate this. I hadn't thought of it. It's so different. It's so cool.
I think the thing, the more challenging aspect of writing a book or creating a painting or a sculpture is, you're so right. When it's done, it's done. Like, you can't go back and revise it. If there's a passage you feel, I wish I could have made it a little better. You can never do that. With a play, you're getting so much feedback all the time. From, if you have a director, if you have a dramaturg, if you have designers, actors, everybody's got something to say. And your job is trying to sift through all of that and then serve the greater purpose of the story. And that's why I find writing books, and this book is way more challenging, because almost you're just alone with yourself. Like, I know you work with editors and things like that, but it's you and yourself and your story and your characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tougher for me anyway to find the faith as a solitary creator. It's very different.
Totally different experience. Absolutely. And when I often say this as writers, when you sit down to write, it's you, yourself, and I in a room with your computer, and maybe you play music, maybe you don't, but there has to be that time in the chair where you're really getting what is ever in your mind, your heart and your imagination onto paper. And then you step out and share it. But what's the writing process like for you when you're doing your book? Do you have any little tips to share?
Well, I love the phrase "time in the chair," because that's important. I hear from a lot of people who always say, I want to write a book, or I have a book in me. But in fact, it's never going to happen if you don't put your bum in the chair and show up to the page. So usually my favorite time to create is, I literally wake up in the morning, because I'm an early riser. I wake up, I sit up, I get a coffee. I have a lovely, huge pillow, and I'll probably do what I call morning pages, and I'll just put anything down on the page, and it doesn't matter if I think it's great or not. And that was one of my struggles as a writer for many years, and it still is that, if I finish a page and it's not great, I just want to go back and start over again. But a lot of writers have said to me, just keep going, because you can have a really rough first draft and then go back and make it into the vision that you want it to be. So get your bum in the chair and show up to the page, and just and don't let your inner critic have the reins.
Yeah, that inner critic just tends to sit right there on the shoulder and always have something to say. Yeah.
Well, that's what I love about you and what you do, is because you're a self-starter, and you have to. I admire your energy and sort of the profile that you're able to give to every person that you come in contact with, and all the writers that you support. If you were waiting around for someone to give you the push to do that, it wouldn't happen. And I think, in a sense, we're all sort of entrepreneurs in that way. And I think that we all can support each other with that kind of energy.
I think so. And one of the reasons in starting to do this show was for myself to learn more about the writing
Yeah,
process and then give a voice to authors, because where can you sit down and talk about your work for half an hour, and still
yeah.
it's there for the world to see. So thank you, Nick. Thank you, Bernie, for saying that, because
Oh,
that
you're
was something
welcome.
that's was important to me to create. So now we've talked about you, the playwright, and how you approach your writing. How about this book? How was this book to write? Because I'm reading here. Do you love life? In this, you can see my little stickies here, by the
Yeah,
way,
I love it.
because there
I
were
love the
phrases that
I
I
love the
like.
yeah, I love the cover that
Yeah,
Breakwater came up with. It's very whimsical, isn't
yeah,
it?
it
Yeah.
is. And I like that you got your little dog on there, and so
Yeah.
many
We have to
writers.
have a
Mhm.
had to have a beagle and a glass of wine, of course, all the important things in life. I was doing so where I started writing books is because I've done a lot of one woman shows in my life. I've written a lot of them, and I've done a lot of monologues. And I don't actually ever really think that I'm a funny person, but I think I write funny things. I can be observant and humorous. And so a lot of my process in my artistic development was writing down what I truths and writing it in a way that I found humorous, and then being able to say it. And then as part of the process, I began to think, well, what about if people could read it? So some of the material in the book Love Life actually began with me on stage creating material, and it all began. I created a one woman show called Woman Naked, and this is a few years ago now. And I was working with Sharon King Campbell, who's a director and a creator here in the province, and it was basically about all the ways that women, we beat ourselves up about our bodies, about our looks, about what society tells us about aging, about, how, when you think about it, if you think about it, most of the advertising and marketing campaigns, money in the world is spent on marketing ideas that convince women that we have to change something about ourselves.
Mm.
So it could be your body shape, it could be your skin type, it could be how you look, it could be what you eat, all manner of things. And I sort of started to just write about that at first and talk about, my nightmares with a Spanx experience, uh, trying to get ready to go to the world premiere of a show of mine, Brazil Square. Literally, I was trapped inside a pair of Spanx because I got them halfway up and I couldn't get them and cut them off with a pair of manicure scissors. And how ridiculous it is, that I would actually go into a restaurant and I'd immediately know the carbohydrate content of everything I was eating, and I was adding it all up in my head. And the more I began to write and talk about things like that, the more feedback I got, and the more women and other people would share their experiences with me. And I also then wanted to marry that with sort of going to Italy and traveling in a country where beauty is celebrated in a completely different way. Where older women are celebrated, where size is celebrated, where you don't have to fit into any kind of cookie cutter mold at all. And when I was a kid, my best friend and I, Mary Pittman, dreamed about going to Italy, and we were going to look for this famous statue. And she passed away in her 20s of cancer. And so she never got to do that. So I went from monologuing to then when I went to Italy, I started blogging. And then I began actually creating prose and going back to my memories of my childhood friend and how free we felt then.
Mm-hmm.
We felt free. We felt like anything is a possibility. And I felt like the older we get as women, particularly, you just feel squished down, and sort of like you become to believe you have to be smaller and you have to be quieter, you have to be nicer. So I took all of those elements and I made it into Love Life. It took a long
And
time.
yeah, well, I was thinking that it's somewhat of a memoir, and and you draw from the past and your experiences over there, and I just got to read this because you brought up the Spanx. So this is one of the lines from your book that I have highlighted because I thought it was so funny. Wearing Spanx doesn't make you look any less fat. You still look fat, plus constipated. Encased like a wild moose sausage. I loved it. I was like, oh my. And there was, I just was laughing at the whole image. And you do that so well. The
Oh,
way,
thank you.
yeah, the way you look at things, and it's kind of, it's fresh. And the way this, and your search for, I want to say it's in Italy, they call it the Palazzo, I think, Bernardine.
Yeah, Bernardini.
Bernardini, the whole search for that. And you're right, like such a different country and such a different approach to women there. And just, I think it's more vibrant. I think of, for example, Sophia Loren. Everything is just sort of,
Yes.
it's just sort of full and out there, and it is what it is. And I just recently saw her in a film, as at her age now, and just kind of trying,
Wow.
to look at it and
Yeah.
put it all back together. But she was still remarkable,
Yeah, and
and
that's
beautiful.
why that's amazing. That's very coincidental because, as you know, she's referenced in the books as
Mhm.
Saint Santa Sofia Loren, that one of the characters constantly prays to. And the thing I found too about being a Newfoundlander anywhere, if you go anywhere where there's a distinct culture, there you're going to find connections. Um, so Italy is like that. It's about where you are geographically. It's about the infrastructure, the very strong arts and cultural stamp that's on absolutely everything. The relationship between food and humor and love, like all of those things are celebrated. And I found that when I was there, as soon as any of us who were from Newfoundland said we're from Newfoundland, there was recognition, even if they thought it was Finland or weren't sure where it was. There was a sense of you come from somewhere that's like us. We are alike. We are a separate entity. Unto ourselves, you're unto yourself. Welcome in. Come on in. And the amazing artistry of the fact, that it was it really reminded me of the fact that whether you're going to theater or music or you're eating food, it's like you don't need language to do it. Because I
Mm.
remember we went to a church and heard opera and it was all in Italian. I didn't care. It was like you didn't have to know what was being sung. It was the intention of it and the beauty of it, that was extremely powerful.
Mhm. It
Yeah.
transcends language. And it's funny, I've been in many countries, and I've always felt at home in Italy. I probably went back 4 or 5 times
Wow.
because I always just felt at home there. And it's not every
Yeah.
country that I feel that way. I like France too,
Mhm.
because I love the French language. And I felt like I could understand Italian because I could understand French, and they're very
Yeah.
close, that sort of thing. But I just it was something about Italy where,
Mm.
and it's interesting you should say that because I felt at home there, and a lot of places I go, I don't feel that same at homeness.
I agree with you. And I think also, if you think about the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, each region is almost a different little country. Like if you are in Europe and you drive somewhere for 2 hours, you're going to be in a different country, basically. If you're in Newfoundland and you drive for 2 hours, you're in Clarenville. So, and there's nothing wrong with being in Clarenville, by the way, but it's like every region is like a different country. That's why I love Grand Falls, Windsor, and Central Newfoundland so much because it's so different from the rest of the province. It's
Mm.
it's so very unique geographically. The trees, the rocks, where you are, the heat. It is a totally transcendent experience. And Italy was like that for me because when I first went there, I was in the Tuscany region, and then if and then without you travel a little further away, and then you're in Florence, and then that's totally different. And it's a lot like Newfoundland, like the accents change wherever you go, and the habits, and
Mhm.
it's I just found so many similarities, and I think you're spot on. I mean, you can go to other countries and not make that connection, but I think if you're in a really sort of distinct culture that's really distilled into a regional type of lifestyle, that Newfoundland will find a connection.
Yes, it will. And Bernie, this book is described as a book about self-acceptance and self-love. So was it healing for you to write it?
Yeah, it's healing for me every day, because every day I can look at it and, okay, I wrote that. So, you know, I've got some wisdom lurking around inside of me somewhere. And when I was working with the publisher Breakwater Books, who are so fantastic, you know, we were wondering, is it a real memoir? And it's not a real memoir, because clearly there are things in there that are, I would call them creative nonfiction, but still creative all the same. So influenced by and based on, but I love that I could find that mix that sort of keeps me within the safety of almost a play, like a character, but also gave me those chapters which could be really forthright and really vulnerable to say, you know, I did feel this way, and I'm working on not feeling that way anymore. And a lot of that was about, you know, how self-isolating depression can be, or body shame can be, any kind of, you know, economic difference can make you feel, if you feel like you're struggling. We hide ourselves away. And then irony of ironies, just as the book was ready for publication with a previous publisher, the pandemic happened. Then we all went into what real isolation is and what real lockdown is. And so then I think it was amazing that I had the opportunity then to go back into the book and sort of, like I was saying to you before with Girls From Away, kind of see what is special, what needs to be said, what needs to resonate. Will we ever have this opportunity again? I was thinking, oh my gosh, that is the last time I'm ever going to go to Italy. And of course, as we know, in the early days of the pandemic, Italy was one of the first and hardest hit. And so I look at the book now also as an homage to the privilege of travel.
Yeah, which we very much took for granted. Absolutely.
Yes. And the importance of knowing and understanding how people around the world live, and it's not at all like the way we do.
No, and sometimes we see things always through our eyes. Bernie, where can people get this? I just want to share with people before we wrap here that this is your website, BernardineStapleton.com, and the book's available through Breakwater's online site. And
yep, it's breakwaterbooks.com, and it's just now going out into stores. So if you go into Chapters or Kohl's or any independent bookstores, if you don't see it, ask for it. And they can just get in touch with Breakwater, and they will take care of that. And of course, you can also get it online from breakwaterbooks.com.
Fantastic. So our time together has come to an end. So
listen, it's always such a joy, because I think you and I could happily talk about writerly things for hours.
A long time.
It's probably a good time we have only a limited amount of time. We'd still be here an hour from now.
Well, thank you so much, Bernie. And to everyone out there watching, thank you for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to Let's Get Writing on YouTube. Have a great day, and we'll see you again soon with another fabulous guest. Bye, Bernie.
Yeah. Bye, love.